Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is all about pan searing and why I personally hate doing it. I've abandoned this long ago, but I'm going to go over it because it's what Ted Naiman recommends. So he says that pan searing is his favorite method of cooking proteins. All you need for pan searing is a piece of protein that is no thicker than roughly 2 inches, a nice hot pan, a fat with a high smoke point, avocado oil, or ghee are your two very best choices, and a light dusting of kosher salt. Everything else is purely optional. So, pan searing is fast, easy, and what's not to love? Cast iron is daunting for a lot of people, but because it is heavy and has a ton of thermal mass, which means it gets really hot and stays really hot, this helps you put really great sear on your steaks or whatever protein you have selected. Start by heating the pan over medium heat for a couple of minutes, then add a few tablespoons of oil. When the oil starts to simmer, you are ready to go. Gently place your protein in the pan and press down so it makes good contact with the hot surface. Leave it in there for at least a few minutes undisturbed, so it forms a really nice crust, which will naturally release from the cast iron instead of sticking. When it looks like you have cooked the bottom half of your protein, flip it over and repeat it on the other side. After cooking, remove your protein from the heat and allow it to rest for a few minutes. Then enjoy your protein. If your protein is thicker than 2 inches, you can butterfly it or cut it in half in a transverse direction, making 2 identical steaks that are each half as thick. Then he goes on to say to make sure that your pan is really hot before you add your protein. You want some shimmering of oil and perhaps a light wisp of smoke from your cooking fat, but not too much. Leave the protein undisturbed for at least several minutes, so it forms a nice crust and your protein naturally releases from the pan before you turn it over. You might want to use your exhaust fan because this can make some smoke. And that point is the entire issue that I have with pan searing and why I hate it so much. It's because of the smoke. So when I first started to learn how to cook steak like 7+ years ago, I would follow the directions. I'd sear it on one side, sear on the other side, and it just creates this crazy smoky mess. I lived in apartments most of my life. I've only lived in a house for the past 4 years. But I find that most kitchen hood vents are basically useless. If you're a cook or you've ever cooked before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Unless you've got a real professional hood that really vacuums and sucks everything up, you are going to set off your smoke alarms. You're going to have a smoky mess. It's gonna be horrible. And that's why I abandoned pan searing altogether. I never ever pan sear anymore. I tried cast iron, I tried aluminum, I tried carbon steel. I tried so many different methods. I tried turning the heat not so high. I have tried it all. Trust me, guys, unless you have a real professional hood vent, it's not gonna work. So what I do instead now is called reverse searing, where you cook your meat in the oven or on a grill at a lower temperature for a longer period of time. And you're using a thermometer probe. I use a meter where you can insert it and it shows you until you get to your desired temperature. And I actually use a blowtorch to sear my meat. I can put the one that I use in the link in the description below, the exact one I use, but it's a MAP torch. So MAP torches are used for sweating copper pipes, but they also work really well when you put propane on it to sear meat. I use it all the time. The great thing is it gets way hotter than a pan ever could. And I heard someone compare it to, it's like painting with fire. And that's literally what it's like. It's so much fun. You don't need to have it on the highest setting. I turn it about midway and you just sear your meat. I get the perfect crust, I get the perfect sear every time, and it creates almost zero smoke because you don't even need oil in order to sear because it's so hot. Well, that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget that you can support me by Patreon in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember that together you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.